Hello, everyone. I'm Colin Tester of WrestleZone.com here back with the recap of Honor, hot off the heels of a very noteworthy, dare I say, historic Ring of Honor Death Before Dishonor pay-per-view last night. And coming out of the show, there's lots to talk about with what happened on the show itself, with news surrounding Ring of Honor here. And I know it's been a while since I've had this show, but with that being said, I'm going to look backward in time here a little bit and recap the women's championship tournament and the Glory by Honor 2-night event from August. All these things, just kind of almost a state of the union, if you will, in Ring of Honor here. And like I said, something's coming out of the pay-per-view last night as well. Definitely worth talking about. And also injury news, Roosh being out for the remainder of the year, all these things and more. We'll get into all of it. Before I do, just want to remind you all of this show, like everything that we do here at WrestleZone, is available on any number of streaming platforms. So it's SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, whatever it may be. We've got you covered. So I guess it would make sense to start with the pay-per-view itself, and then work through some of the other things we've got here. And in that sense, let's work through this kind of chronologically. We had the Hour 1 Honor Rumble, 15 men competing for the right to challenge for the Ring of Honor World Championship. In the past, Flip Gordon has won. That's how he got a shot at, was that Best in the World this year that he finally got the shot to challenge Bandito to challenge for the title? Or no, it's Glory by Honor Night 1. That was when Flip Gordon faced Bandito. But definitely, this match is a great way for any number of competitors to break through and get a world title shot. Like, it's definitely a big breakthrough moment for anyone that could potentially win the match. And they announced, Ring of Honor announced about, I think, 10 of the participants ahead of time. Guys like Brian Johnson, the Bouncers, I think PJ Black, Dak Draper, a bunch of guys that you kind of tend to see on ROH TV or week by week, and any number of them I would have been pretty happy to see win and walk away with a world title shot. Now, they did announce that the winner would challenge on an upcoming episode of ROH TV. We're not quite sure when that will be. I have to assume it might be at some point in the fairly near future. Maybe could see it maybe sometime in October. I know that Ring of Honor will be doing another set of tapings before too long here, so I would imagine sooner and later they'll announce when that match will be, and we'll of course keep you guys posted as far as we know more. But like I said, just about 10 people, or I should say 10 participants, have been announced ahead of time, and of course you have a couple room for surprises. One surprise was Caprice Coleman literally ripped his shirt off at the broadcast table and entered the match. This man's looking great. I looked it up. I believe he's 44, and he's absolutely jacked. Like, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not trying to make too much of it, but he looked like he could absolutely still go. I'm not really sure what his quote unquote status is, but if he wants to get back to the ring, he definitely looks like he could. He looks like he has not missed a step at all. Caprice Coleman looking great. So that was a very cool surprise to see that, and he looked great in the ring as well. Like, he hit some of his usual offense. I think he dropped Brian Johnson with the Coleman cutter or something, whatever the name was. He looked great, but physically in the ring, it was very cool to see him there in the 2300 arena. Because I know that I've been really watching Ring of Honor full time since like 2019, and that was the kind of years after his in-ring career ended. So and Luis Polito asking if Coleman is 44. I will look it up just to double check, but I thought that was the case. Otherwise, at the very least, he is definitely kind of up there. Well, let's look it up here, and he is 44. Look it up just right now. So I know, right? Time flies, and it makes you feel old when you look up stuff like that. But Caprice Coleman, a guy, I might as well look it up here. It looks like he retired. I don't even know. Oh, let's see. Maybe 2017-ish. Something right around there. So it's been a while. So definitely, I'm not really familiar with what he's been doing otherwise. I just know him as the Ring of Honor alongside Daniel Cavani, the play-by-play guy. So as far as I can recall, this was probably the first time I've really seen him get in the ring. I think they've teased him getting physical here and there, again, throughout the time I've been really hardcore watching since 2019. But yeah, definitely this was the first time he's been in a match in the spotlight like this. And again, not to emphasize it or shine too much on it, but he looked great. And if we're going to get into a little fantasy booking here, it'd be cool to see him come back. Maybe have another match, maybe square off with Shane Taylor Promotions or something like that. I don't know. I think there's a lot they could do with him if he does want to get back to the ring. If this was a one-off, a fun cameo, it was a fun one it was, and it was a very, very pleasant surprise. Another fun surprise was the unexpected arrival of Alex Zane, formerly known as Ari Sterling, if that's how you pronounce it, formerly of WWE. Now, if you remember, Alex Zane competed in 2 matches with Ring of Honor before he signed with WWE, but this guy's been all over the place, Game Changer Wrestling, more promotion than I could even think to name here. But he got released from WWE last month in August here. So ironically, of course, the match, one of the first matches on the main card was a clash between 2 recently released WWE wrestlers. But Alex Zane debuted here, or I guess I should say returned in this Honor Rumble. He was the final entrant. Again, you had guys like Brian Johnson, the Bouncers, Dak Draper, PJ Black, Ray Orris, and the PCO was in there. It was cool to see a PCO from world champion, and we'll talk about him later. We got a big news item, or at least a report item coming out just in the aftermath of the pay-per-view here. But yes, Alex Zane won the match here, and basically the match came down. I think it was Brian Johnson, PJ Black, and Flip Gordon. And if I may talk about Flip Gordon for a moment here, this man. He's been on quite a journey in the past couple of weeks. I think it was at Glory by Honor Night 2. He faced Mark Briscoe, and I think it was Brian Johnson in a tag team match. And Mark kind of hit it might have been a pile driver or something on a chair, and they've been going with Gordon hit his head so hard that he thinks it's 2018. And shortly after the pay-per-view, it may have been on an episode of ROH TV. He referenced Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks by name, of course. Rhodes and the Young Bucks used to be at the forefront of Ring of Honor back at that point in time. That was before the formation of All Elite Wrestling. So obviously the rest is history on that one. But I mean that was kind of fun. And then they upped the ante with it last night, where Flip Gordon came out with a kind of a throwback entrance video and theme song, and he was rocking the same haircut and gear that he wore very early in his Ring of Honor run here, and he came out carrying the American flag, very much like as if he was displaced from time. This is just good fun stuff. I like it. It's a nice kind of evolution, or maybe I should say, I don't know. Step backwards sounds wrong, but throwback, I guess. Ongoing throwback for Flip Gordon here, and he looked great here. As a heel, as the mercenary, he was kind of shying away from doing the high flying offense you'd expect to see a babyface do, but now that he thinks he's a babyface again, he's doing high flying offense all over again. So having him and PJ Black along with Alex Zane finish off the match with some high flying offense definitely left me wanting to see a match ideally between all 3. I know we've seen PJ Black and Flip Gordon face off before, but I would definitely like to see these 3 guys go in there and tear it down, because they are 3 very, very talented high flyers. But yes, in the end, Alex Zane won this match. The runner-up was PJ Black. So Alex Zane, the night he returned to Ring of Honor here, just 1 month after his WWE release, has earned a shot at the Ring of Honor World Championship, currently held by Bandito. We'll talk about the world title match from the pay-per-view later in the show. So if here today, it would seem that Alex Zane has earned a shot at Bandito, and boy, that'll be a very, very fun match. Like I was just saying about Zane, PJ Black, and Flip Gordon, if Bandito does face Alex Zane, that'll be an absolutely fast-paced, high-flying, electric match, and I very much look forward to that. We really didn't get to see too much of Zane showcase himself in WWE. He was on 205 Live, and he competed. He had matches, but again, if you're talking about really getting this prominent spot, challenging for the world title, pretty darn cool to have him get that his first night back in Ring of Honor. Now I'm biased. I say it pretty much every time I've done one of these shows. I was really rooting for Brian Johnson. He was in his hometown of Philadelphia. He cut a promo before the match saying I was really going to prove that it's Mecca versus everybody in Philadelphia. It was not best in the world, but Glory by Honor was also in Philadelphia. And you could see how much the crowd really resonated with him and got behind him, even though he's a heel, even though he's the Mecca. And that was very much the case last night, where I think Johnson, he was entrant number 1. This was like a Royal Rumble level story where Johnson was the first entrant, and he lasted all the way to the final 4, and it really had me kind of rooting for him. I was rooting for him anyway, but then when he made it to the final 4, I was thinking oh, this guy might win. They could actually give him a world title shot here, but it was not meant to be. Unfortunately, Brian Johnson was eliminated again after making it to the final 4. But definitely a good showing for him. Very much hoping to see him get his flowers, if you will. I thought it would be really cool to see him get a big win there in Philadelphia, his hometown. wasn't meant to be, but definitely a good showing for him to be in there with some of Ring of Honor's best and brightest. But again, Alex Zane won. Good showing for him, and I'm very much looking forward to, assuming he faces Bandito. I'm very much looking forward to that one as well. Nestor Curtis chipping in with a hey, Colin. Hello. Nestor, a very loyal and consistent supporter of wrestling here. We appreciate you saying good afternoon. Yeah, it's Monday afternoon here as I'm recording this. I started about 1 o'clock. Figured I would just break down the show and all the news and notes surrounding Ring of Honor right now. Again, lots of stuff to talk about coming out of the show, from what happened on the event itself, and stuff coming outside of the show as well. And even stuff before the show that again, it's been a while since I've done one of these, but there's so much to talk about. It felt like a good time to get back on track here. So with that, we had the Honor Rumble on the first hour. I think it was during the first hour as well that Maria Kanellis Bennett, the first lady of Ring of Honor, cut a promo. She's the one that's really been leading the way with the Women's Championship tournament. We'll talk about that as well. But definitely noteworthy here that she said basically, at Death Before Dishonor last night, they're going to crown a new champion, and then once that champion. Once we have a champion, she would kind of put that champion against anybody else. Regardless of any quote-unquote door, very clearly referencing this forbidden door talk. And she had said that in a recent interview, not on camera, but I remember, I can't remember what publication, but she had said something very similar, where once the tournament's complete, and Ring of Honor has a women's champion, that we could very well see that champion interact with other companies' champions. You look at NWA potentially, and I think in that same interview she had mentioned they wanted to get Thunder Rosa for the tournament. That would have been really cool. Unfortunately, that didn't work out, but proving that Ring of Honor is trying to get back into the fray of this increasingly collaborative atmosphere of wrestling right now. I'm not quite sure how far that will go. That could potentially, who's to say, that could be an AEW, that could be an NWA, Impact, there are connections there, I would imagine, maybe. I've read a Kenny King interview the other day with Inside the Ropes, so he was saying it might be time for Ring of Honor and WWE to work together. That'd be pretty darn crazy, but he did note that those are the two companies that really, at least in the big picture here, the major companies that aren't really getting in on the action here. So seeing them work together as a Ring of Honor fan, as a WWE fan, that'd be pretty darn cool. Again, sometimes we wander into fantasy booking territory here. I think that would be pretty fun. He had mentioned that when the Hurt Business was first getting reaching its peak, kind of, he goes way back with Lashley and MVP, and I guess he had said that they were kind of calling him saying like, oh, what are you up to? And King said if WWE wanted to buy out his contract or reach some other agreement, he would have been willing to join the Hurt Business. So I feel like there is potential there, like with that specifically, and then with Ring of Honor and WWE potentially working together. Again, purely hypothetical. There's nothing to back that up in terms of actual reports or anything. I'm just saying I think it would be beneficial for both parties in one way or another to work together in some capacity, even if it were WWE bringing in some Ring of Honor guys on NXT, although the reports about supposedly WWE shying away from or putting less emphasis on independent wrestling there. Maybe the ship might have sailed on that one, but who knows, right? In wrestling in 2021, you never know what's going to happen. So definitely with Maria Kanellis Bennett saying that line about there's no door here, I would expect very much to see some more collaboration here in some capacity. Perhaps maybe mainly in the women's division, but maybe just in a general sense. And I'm very much looking forward to that. So after that was the first hour. It was absolutely free, so fans got to see Alex Zane return. If you're watching on YouTube, it was also free on Fight TV, and I believe Ring of Honor streamed it on their their Facebook page. So the first hour was absolutely free, and then the main card was, of course, the pay-per-view itself. And it started off with a very fun match here with Dalton Castle and Eli Isom. These two have been feuding for quite a while now. Castle, a former Ring of Honor World Champion. I'm sure even casual fans kind of know the story here. He was the Ring of Honor World Champion. He's been plagued by back issues, and then he's kind of found his way back and really kind of returned to the spotlight here after a rough period for a while where he was really kind of dealing with that injury. And on the flip side, Eli Isom, definitely one of the bright upcoming stars in Ring of Honor. Definitely a big spot for him here by facing a former world champion. Castle and Dak Draper, who he's kind of taken under his wing as protege, have been kind of combined feuding with Eli Isom for a while. They challenged for the 6-man titles at best. I think it was best in the world, and they cost each other the match, but Draper wound up joining forces with Castle. Draper made a difference here. He distracted Isom, and that allowed Castle to pick up a win. A fun match to open the show. Not too much to say about it other than the fact that Castle's really been rolling, and I'm not sort of his exact record, but I feel like he's won pretty much every match he's been in, at least as a singles competitor, for the past couple months now. I mean, I'm not quite sure the exact numbers, but I would have to imagine that his goal of bringing Ring of Honor a Golden Globe Award, he said that in a recent interview, and he kind of hopes to kind of do that by becoming the TV champion, but and kind of bringing more flair and excitement to the TV product. I mean, hey, I think it's only a matter of time before we see Dalton Castle at least challenge for the TV title. I imagine he'll have to be at the top, or maybe even number one in the rankings here coming out of this win here. So right again, as I was saying about Alex Zane, if we're talking about right here today, Dragon Lee holds the title. So definitely an interesting clash of styles and personalities. We could see there with Dragon Lee and Dalton Castle there. Otherwise, the next match on the card definitely. As I was saying about Alex Zane being a recently released WWE star coming in, we didn't know about him. We did know about Taylor Rust. Did I get that right? Or did they? Taylor Rust. He had been Russ Taylor during his previous Ring of Honor run in the Pure Championship tournament last fall. And then when it came back, they flipped the name. So now it is Taylor Rust. Right. I'm going to keep getting that mixed up. I need to get a little used to that. And his opponent was Jake Atlas, the guy that's definitely one of the, I would say rightfully so, one of the hottest free agents on the market here, and at least in terms of that crop of the mass releases that got released. That's redundant, but forgive me. The group of talent that got released from WWE that was just last month from NXT. So when they announced it was Taylor Rust and Jake Atlas to be facing off in a singles match, I was pretty excited to see what these two guys could do. And you could just kind of tell. I may have been projecting here, but you could just tell they're kind of like hungry and like they really wanted to show like, hey, maybe that they had a chip on the shoulder. Like, no, like we're here, we are talented, we're going to show ourselves, we're going to put on a good match and show that basically WWE did us wrong, and and that we are talented. And that's, of course, agreeing that Jake Atlas is talented, and I would agree. And on that note, even though Taylor Rust, sorry, it's going to take me a while. He won. Taylor won. Did I do it again? Taylor Rust, my gosh, Taylor Rust won the match here. And then the broadcast team confirmed that that Taylor Rust, Jake Atlas, and Alex Zane will be involved. Well, they said they'll be on Ring of Honor television in the coming weeks, so I'd imagine that means they're sticking around for the upcoming set of TV tapings. So I'm not quite sure exactly how much they'll be around, with Alex Zane earning a world title shot. I imagine he'll be around for at least a short-term future. Definitely hoping to see Jake Atlas stick around. I think he's just brings a very I don't know. He's very, very talented. I think he's got that name value, and he's generally talented as is. Russ Taylor is as well. I feel like there's some overlap with Russ Taylor and Taylor Rust and the Foundation, whereas Taylor Rust had been in the Diamond Mine briefly in NXT. It feels like there's something there. I'm not quite sure what it is. The stylistic, like, granted, the Diamond Mine isn't this emphasis on pure wrestling, but even just kind of maybe tonally, or just in a general sense, I think there's something there. So maybe even if it's him kind of scoring off with some of the members of the Foundation, or at the very least, I could easily see Taylor Rust slotting in the Pure Division there, and mixing up with guys like LSG, Titus, Tracy Williams, who even knows? I think there are definitely a bunch of matches you could do there, and I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, so I'm very much. I think it's great. I'm very happy to see that Atlas, Rust, and Alex Zane, however long it might be, are sticking around. I mean, it's always fun to, like, when you see the releases aren't fun. Whenever you see these mass releases, it's really like draining and admittedly crappy as a wrestling fan. But on the flip side, it does free up this talent, and whichever company you like. And for me, I like multiple. I like AEW, Ring of Honor, WWE. For me. When you see those releases, it's like, okay, yeah, that sucks for the person, for the competitor, as a fan. But then you look on the other side of it, it's like, okay, but now they're free to go elsewhere. And then you start thinking, where might they go? And here we saw Rust, Atlas, and Zane pop up here. And it's never like a solution to just bring in ex-WWE guys, but it's a fun way to infuse more talent. And I think all three guys are deservedly I was about to say deservedly deserving of the spot, but I mean, like, they definitely deserve this opportunity to be on this pay-per-view card, and to have a spot in Ring of Honor here, and to mix it up with, as I would agree, Ring of Honor builds itself as the best wrestling on the planet. So kind of giving these guys a chance to prove that they belong among that label. So Russ Taylor picked up a win here. So Taylor, my gosh, I'm gonna roll with it. If I keep making a mistake, forgive me. But Taylor Rest pick up the win here, and like I said, I could definitely see him sliding in here with the pure division. Jake Atlas, I think he could face anybody on the roster, have a great match. And for Alex Zane, he already earned a world title shot, so we kind of know at least roughly in a general sense what he'll be doing. And I think that was one of the highlights of the pay-per-view is seeing these newcomers show up here in Ring of Honor and potentially sticking around. So speaking of newcomers, we had Violence Limited. They issued an open challenge against past, present, and future pure wrestlers, and that kind of cued some speculation about who we might see. You know, they made it clear they were going to have one pure wrestler of the past, one from the present, one from the future. You think of guys like Daniel Garcia, who's killing it in AEW right now, and all over the wrestling world, really. You think of guys like Lee Moriarty, who thankfully they did get for this match, and unfortunately, I think it was like a 1-2 combo. Like I think Ring of Honor announced they booked him for this match, and I think it was just a matter of days later that they announced that AEW announced, or that I should say, Tony Khan offered Moriarty a contract at an AEW Dark taping. So you know, I'm very, very glad that they brought Lee Moriarty here. I hope Mr. Curse, I think, signing off, saying have a great day. I hope you have a great day as well. I hope to see you back here for the Raw show, which I'll be back here tonight, talk about Monday Night Raw. But yeah, the Ring of Honor did get Lee Moriarty, which, you know, definitely the present and maybe even future of Pure Wrestling. He was initially scheduled for the Pure Championship tournament before the pandemic, even hit. He had been scheduled for that, and then when Ring of Honor was forced to delay the tournament, they didn't get him for the second attempt at that tournament. So this was his Ring of Honor debut, and unless we see some, you know, true Forbidden Door aspects of collaboration here, I think we may not see Lee Moriarty really in Ring of Honor otherwise. But I'm very glad that we got to see him here, because I know that's something that I think, you know, that he's wanted to do. He tweeted about it after the match, saying he was very glad to get the opportunity. I know Ring of Honor, as I said, they've been wanting to bring him in, so thankfully they could work this out with the show where you have live fans, so that Ring of Honor fans live and in person could enjoy seeing one of the very best pure wrestlers on the scene here. So definitely very cool to see that. John Walters was the representative of the past, where he's been a former Pure champion, so that was a natural fit. And LSG, you know, I think he was deemed the present. He's currently in the Pure Championship rankings here. He's a guy that's definitely been impressive in matches with Jay Lethal, and I believe he faced Jonathan Gresham at some point. Could be wrong on that one. But yeah, and Violence Limited, I mean, to me, they're practically becoming Team ECW here. I remember it was Glory Be Honored. I think they faced LFI, and it was just like very chaotic, like old school ECW style match, just like absolutely crazy. I think there were table spots and everything, and the crowd was super into it. I mean, these guys are all about violence, and you know, you throw them out there in the former ECW arena, it's a pretty natural fit. So very, very glad to see Violence Limited pick up the win here. I believe Chris Dickinson pinned Lee Moriarty, which makes a lot of sense. Again, as I said, Lee Moriarty probably not going to be back, you know, at least on paper here. So, you know, kind of have him take the loss on the way out. Makes sense. Dickinson definitely continues to impress me. I think he and Tony Deppen kind of combined could be well, they already have been very, very successful in Ring of Honor as part of this group. I think the sky's the limit for them, really, as this group and as individuals here. Now, while I'm talking about them, I should mention this weekend on Ring of Honor Wrestling, Violence Unlimited lost the tag titles to Dragon Lee and Kenny King. That definitely caught me by surprise. And also, the Ring of Honor shared the episode earlier than usual. Usually, I do the Recap of Honor show on Mondays to review the show, because it is now available to Mondays, and they actually shared it. I think it may have been on Saturday. So, you know, to kind of set up a pay-per-view where they had LFI be getting the tag titles. So Kenny King and Dragon Lee are once again the champions. Hopefully they have better luck this time around. Their reign get kind of curtailed by injuries last time. So, but I'll admit, I was very surprised by that, where you've had Violence Unlimited kind of rolling here, and Dickinson and Hamside make a pretty good team. And then to have lose the titles. But then, you know, I don't know. It was interesting to me to have them lose the titles on the TV show, and then have Violence Limited win at the pay-per-view, and then have LFI lose the 6-man tag title match when they're challenging for the titles there. I mean, I can understand either way, but to me, it felt like an opportunity there to have Violence Limited pick up a pretty big win over Lee and King to kind of really cement themselves as a team there. So, you know, But regardless of that loss here, Violence Limited still rolling. Admittedly, they won this match, and their other member, Brody King, came up short in the main event. We'll talk about that. But I enjoyed this match and very much looking forward to seeing what Violence Limited does next. So definitely a nice one there to kind of prove that violence is the answer because they defeated the Pure Wrestlers there. After the match, Jay Lethal and the Foundation came out to kind of say, hey, the Pure Wrestlers just lost, but Pure Wrestling is alive and well here in Ring of Honor. And Lethal looked at Lee Moriarty and said, basically, I wish you could have stayed here because you'd fit right in. Essentially, I'm kind of paraphrasing there, but saying definitely put him over. He praised LSG, praised the general style of Pure Wrestling, saying that it's alive and well here in Ring of Honor. Admittedly, and he said it himself, it's been a while since there's been a Ring of Honor pay-per-view without Jay Lethal on it. And a report broke after the show that the Foundation will be back in action at the upcoming TV taping. So we're not quite sure what to expect there, but again, we talk about it all the time here on this show. Stable Warfare is definitely thriving here in Ring of Honor. You've got Violence Unlimited, LFI, the Foundation, Shane Taylor Promotions, if you want to count them as well. I think you should. So yeah, I think we might see the Foundation get back on track here, starting with these TV tapings and maybe kind of feeling maybe a chip on the shoulder for not having been on the card there. So very much hoping that they get back in the swing of things and get back on the winning ways here. So now getting a question from I Am Random from our YouTube page here saying, was there a crowd in the show? And that leads me to something I was going to wait to talk about later, but you ask and I want to answer. So there was a crowd for the show. And it was great. It was in the 2300 arena, formerly known as the ECW arena, and basically that's become like this destination of sorts for wrestling in the Tri-State area, where MLW's run a bunch of shows there and will continue to. Ring of Honor, that's where they've really run most of their live shows since they brought fans back at Best in the World. That one was in Maryland, but since then they did Glory of Honor and Death Before Dishonor. But at that show, although they had moved Death Before Dishonor from Florida to back to Pennsylvania there in Philadelphia due to the pandemic. So yes, there was a live show. The fans are great. Ring of Honor fans are very passionate, and I love seeing them back in attendance. But there was a report that broke pretty much right after the show ended. I was up, doing coverage for the show, and I happened to check the news, and it was a report, not officially announced, but Mike Johnson of PW Insider announced that at least as of last night, Ring of Honor does not have any for future plans for live shows for the rest of the year. And that does not mean that they won't. That means that they don't currently have those plans in place due to the pandemic, due to the Delta variant. And that sucks. I'm not gonna try and really put a spin on it. Like, I mean, I will say it sucks as a fan because it's been so much fun having the live fans back at the shows. We've seen that, and that's across the board at WWE, AEW, for Ring of Honor especially. I think the fans really bring so much to the product, which is great as it is. But having there's just nothing like it. I think we all sat through the brunt of the COVID pandemic there. Which I would say in some ways we're still in. I don't want to get into the weeds on that one, but with the variant, with all these concerns about it, Ring of Honor definitely has been very, very safe and cautious, and they've made it very, very clear they're trying to do their very best to protect their talent, and I think that deserves a heck of a lot of credit. At the same time, with the report that they're not firmly planning on doing live shows for the rest of the year due to the pandemic. To me, I wonder, like, what's up with, or I should say, how does that really affect the other companies, right? What does that mean for WWE? What does that mean for AEW? Because that news broke right after the show ended last night. I'm sitting here, it's September 13th. AEW just had its amazing all-out pay-per-view. WWE is set to have their Extreme Rules pay-per-view later this month. Largely, we've seen a return to relative normalcy for wrestling here, and this is something that we've been worried about for a couple weeks now. I feel like we had pretty much July, roughly, of genuine, like, okay, fans back is great. It's good time. Hooray! It's a very, very like ongoing party. But now it's like, okay, no, there's definitely concern, and the numbers aren't looking good. So I don't know. I definitely commend Ring of Honor for being safe here. I think that definitely deserves a ton of credit. I could pull up the report itself here. So yes, they will do another set of tapings, pretty much like they did during the pandemic. This week in Philadelphia, it will be a close set of tapings. We'll do another set of tapings in November without fans. So that would mean that that's not to say that like that's not different in itself, because Ring of Honor Television has still been without fans. They've been doing the live shows for the pay-per-views, Glory Bound here in August, and now Death Before Dishonor last night. So that's not new in itself, but the report that they don't have firm plans for more live shows throughout the fall, that is new, because the report had stated, from Mike Johnson, had stated that they had some plans to do live shows, because before the pandemic, they ran shows, at least once a month, and obviously the pandemic changed everything. So yes, Nesh Kurtz, definitely, I'm very much on board with what you're saying. She says she likes what ROH has been doing throughout the pandemic era here, of keeping the wrestlers safe. And they deserve credit for that, saying that they're probably pushing to have fans back, and that might be the case across the board. Nobody wants to have shows without fans. Like, everybody wants to have live fans back. I think that's pretty safe, because wrestling fans are crucial to wrestling, at least the live presentation of it. So I think companies that can do it and feel comfortable doing it are going to do it, and maybe. I'm not here to get, again, too in the weeds about it, but again, my reaction was very, very kind of like a 1-2 punch. My first was like, oh man, that stinks. I was really glad to have fans back in Ring of Honor. And then on the flip side, I was like, well, if they're not really planning to do that, like, what's up with the other companies, and what does this mean? And I don't know. I don't know what it means. And that's Chris saying the cases are high with COVID and the pandemic here. With the Delta variant, all these other things. So she's proud of what they're doing, and I would agree. And I definitely I hope that they do get credit for that. That people kind of focus on the fact that, like, it's good to be proactive and safe, especially when wrestling is probably admittedly one of the more dangerous things you could be doing here in a pandemic world. So and yeah, so then you think about the fans, the fan aspect of it. I mean, how many times do you see a live show? I'm not going to name companies, but in a very general sense, where you see fans they do the crowd shots and fans aren't wearing masks. It's like, all right, that's not great. Like that's not good. It's not. So no, I think this is definitely disappointing in the sense that it was great. It's been great having fans back, and this has not been confirmed officially by Ring of Honor, so I can't take this as 100% truth. But it was a reliable source, Mike Johnson of PW Insider, usually is very, very solid. So I would believe it. And if it does get confirmed, of course, we'll have more details about it if /when become available. But yeah, that is definitely disappointing. The report had stated that they'll take things on a week-by-week basis. So if things go well, maybe we'll have a show in November. I don't know. We really don't know anything. That's the nature of the pandemic right now, and as it has been. There's just no way to really know with any certainty. The report had stated that Ring of Honor hopes to do Final Battle in December, as they did last year in Baltimore, presumably with fans. It was not with fans last year. So I don't know. So Ring of Honor, yes, Nish Chris pointed that the wording was a week-by-week basis here. So let's have wait and see. And that is definitely the nature of the pandemic, where it's like it is very dynamic and ever-changing, where you just don't know. I hope that I hope things that things work out, that the pandemic, that the wrestling can truly return to normal soon, or at least relative normalcy in a true sense, where you don't really have to worry so much about all these things. But this is the way of the world. It's reality. Again, I don't want to get too political or too in the weeds here, but I commend Ring of Honor for doing that. I could sit here and talk about it for a good amount longer here. Let's Chris bring up the Thunderdome possibly returning. I've heard a rumor about that. I'm not sure how solid that is. If things don't get better, I think it's possible. I think that as we saw at the beginning of the pandemic, and to just keep it general here, wrestling companies will do whatever it takes to keep going. The show must go on as long as it possibly can, until it becomes absolutely way too risky. So if that means the Thunderdome returning, and there's something we said for that. Neshka saying she loved doing the Thunderdome. If it means AW, going back to Daly's place and doing more, who knows, right? If there are any number of ways we could see companies kind of move forward here. Ring of Honor has a pretty good system of doing the tapings without fans, and while they've been able to doing the live shows with fans for the pay-per-views, making those feel even more special. So yeah, I to put a bow on it, I hope that that this absence won't be too long, and assuming it is true, and that we might have Vince back for Final Battle in December, because thankfully that's, I hate to say, but only 3 months. So and once you get through the brunt of the first pandemic era, it feels like, all right, let's do it. At least you know what you're in for. So yes, I hope for the best for Ring of Honor, for wrestling, for the world, to say the least here. I hope the best for the world, for the pandemic, for people being safe. That is where I'll leave it here. Otherwise, back to Death Before Us. We have so much news to talk about. Like, we're like lingering on the show. We're talking about the fans here, and that was definitely one of the big news pieces coming out of the show. But to get back to the card here, the OGK defeated the Briscoes in a kind of reignition of their feud from back in 2015. Mike Bennett and Matt Taven, I was worried I got the names wrong for a second, are back. They reunited last fall when Mike Bennett came back to Ring of Honor. And these two teams definitely, I interviewed Matt Taven last week to preview this match, and he was saying he doesn't like being considered the quote unquote old guard, but I definitely consider him, Bennett, and definitely the Briscoes, for my money, probably definitely the greatest tag team in Ring of Honor history. 11-time tag team champions. Nobody can take that away from them. And they've been successful all over the world as well. They've wrestled in Japan, as have the OGK. So definitely a full circle moment here. These two teams faced off last in 2015. So and both teams have kind of been down on the block in different ways. The OGK was kind of involved in this feud with Vincent and the Righteous, whereas the Briscoes had been on a losing streak. We had the unforgettable fight on the farm. And after that, they literally beat their issues out of each other, and now they're back on a united front, which is why I was very surprised to see the OGK win this match. To me, it would have made, again, I wander into fantasy booking sometimes here, but if I had the pencil as the booker here, to me, it might have made a little more sense in my mind to have the Briscoes win to really to complete that comeback story or redemption story, or however you want to phrase it. This climb back to the top, where the fight on the farm, Neshika saying she loved it. Yes, it was very, very fun. The whole point of it was to say, okay, our issues are behind us. We fought it out. Now we are moving on. I think they literally said we're going to start from the bottom and work our way back up. This match would have been a great way to do it. And then the OGK won, and it was a great match. Mike Bennett has been great since he returned. Again, I think that was last October, November. He's challenged for the Pure title, and he looked great doing that. He's had a bunch of good matches here, and the OGK has teamed up a couple of times. So this is the first time we got to see them really outside of the feud of the Righteous. So maybe that's one reason that they were able to kind of get the win. They were free of all the Righteous distractions and all these things. So they did defeat the Briscoes, and for that reason, I would expect to see them challenge for a tag title sooner rather than later. Admittedly, other than the stables here, where you have a couple of teams from each stable, you could run out Gresham and Lethal, Titus and Williams for the Foundation. Balance Limited, you can do the champions we just saw, Dickinson and Homicide. LFI, you've got who are the champions now, Kenny King and Dragon Lee. If you want to look over to Shane Taylor Promotions, you've got Moses and Khan, the Soldiers of Savagery as an option, and otherwise not too many teams. Where you've got the OGK and the Briscoes, you've got PCO and Danhausen as a fun team, but we'll talk about more about PCO in a minute, because he might be on his way out, or supposedly is on his way out of the company in just a couple months here. But otherwise, not too many teams to really that you can really rely on, and maybe that's one reason why you have why we saw the OGK winning here. But for me, I thought that the Briscoes may have been the better pick, because then you have them continue this redemption story, and then you have the OGK, at least kind of do, if not at the very least, do a similar thing where they're like, all right, now we're down on our luck, now we gotta figure it out. And if you want to go all the way with it, I thought you could have one of them turn on the other and feud. I think that's something that might be an option. It should definitely be an option at some point. There's so much history there, and I feel like that's probably coming at some point, depending how long Bennett sticks around. So I thought losing there would have been a good chance. It would have been a good chance to at least plant those seeds for the OGK to feud, but they won, and like I said, they're definitely back in the thick of things here. So I'd expect to see them challenge their title sooner rather than later. So good for them. For the Briscoes, I'm not quite sure, because like I said, they literally had that storyline where it's like they fought it out. They had the fight on the farm. They're back on the same page, and the whole point was that they were climbing the way back up to the top. Not to say they still can't do that. They could easily just like, get knocked down a peg and have to work back, up again. But I thought I would like to see them win here and potentially challenge for their titles sooner than later. But again, I'm not the booker. I don't have pencil. I'm just a fan. So I'm just sharing my thoughts on what may have, what I might have liked to see instead. But this is what we got, and I'm obviously always willing to see how it goes and do my best to enjoy it. So speaking of something that I enjoyed, the Pure Championship match between Josh Woods and Jonathan Gresham. This one went just about 20 minutes of pure wrestling. And here, this is one thing where I think at Best in the World, and I would say Glory by Honor, the pure wrestling, it was great. You had these great matches. The fans are here for it. During the pandemic era, you saw, so many pure matches without fans, and that kind of helped complement the style and the tone of it, where it's just like physical and brutal. Pure matches, it's like it does have an interesting effect when it's in front of live fans. I truly heard at least one fan saying like, what do you fight already or something? Because they started really, really slow. They were doing technical holds. And for some fans, like that's not interesting enough, where it's like they want a little more action. You think of like a bandito who's going to go out there and like do some flips and stuff right away. Whereas these pure matches definitely start more slowly, and it's really about battling for position and really pure technical wrestling. So in a way, if we're talking about potentially fans, going back to a no fan setting here, that would be one silver lining. So I think the pure matches worked even better in that environment. Yeah, and I think some of them have been great in front of live fans, like including Best in the World and whatnot. But this one, it definitely felt like in some ways the fans weren't quite really like into it. At least in the beginning, I think it picked up. We had a false finish where both men got. I think they got counted out. There was a draw, and Gresham had said that he's not going to let it go down like that, and he wants the match to restart. And they went back and forth for a couple minutes. It was really, really good. Gresham, the best wrestler in the world, bar none, in my opinion, at least when I talk about pure wrestling. But Josh Woods won this match, which I thought was very, very not surprising. As Josh Woods, I mean, he's worked his way up. He had a breakout run in the pure title tournament last year. I interviewed him, and I admittedly I was a little biased. I'm like, I want this guy to win. He's a good guy, and he's a great wrestler. And I think I've been rooting for him even since I started watching Ring of Honor. I think he's got a great look, got a lot of potential. He reminds me of like a young Brock Lesnar in some ways, not like jacked out of his mind or anything, but that amateur wrestling background just reminds me of him in a general sense. So in the end, Woods pinned Gresham with a brutal like tombstone throw that looked really rough. Like he just threw Gresham across the ring and he pinned him. I think Gresham had defended the title 7 times, if I'm not mistaken, and I believe he was 12-0 in pure rules matches before this loss. It was pretty darn cool. And I looked it up. I think Woods is he's only the second pure champion since Ring of Honor brought it back last fall. I think he's the 8th or 9th overall. So, and that means he joins names like Bryan Danielson, held that gold. That means he's joining some very, very distinguished company there. Nezha Kurz saying that Joss Woods certainly deserves it, saying that she originally did not care for the pure wrestling, but she's come around, even though it takes some getting used to. And I would agree. I think that the pandemic era definitely helped me get used to it, where it's like it's easier to really kind of get into it without the fans. But then, when the fans are there and it doesn't feel like they're quite as into it, like I was saying, I don't know. There's definitely an interesting dynamic there. So definitely good for Josh Woods. And Gresham had a great run as a pure champion. He did exactly what he said he would by restoring the glory and the honor to that title, by purifying the pure division as the foundation vowed to do. For Gresham and Woods both, I think that this is a good chance to go to the next level, where you've got Woods winning his first title in Ring of Honor, really kind of solidifying his place as a real bright rising star. Maybe even now he has quote unquote arrived. I think that's very cool for him. I'm looking forward to see what he does next. For Gresham, we saw later in the show after the main event match, he and the foundation congratulated Bandito for retaining the world title, and Gresham looked a little too long at the world title. So I have to imagine that we might see Gresham and Bandito face off at some point, and that match is on my short list of absolute dream matches in Ring of Honor. Both of my top favorites in the company, both men, and in very, very different ways. Bandito, an absolutely electric high flyer. Gresham, as I said, probably for my money, the best pure wrestler in the world. I think that'd be just an absolutely great match, and I'm very much looking forward to it. Assuming we get that, and we'll talk about the world title scene a little later, but they've got a lot of options, and that's very, very clear. Additionally, we saw Alex Zane literally earn a shot earlier. But even beyond that, people that haven't, Vincent knows, let's get into it now. Bandito retained the world title in the main event. It was a fatal four-way match where he retained against EC3, Brody King, and Demonic Flamita. The latter, or the last one there, being one of his former Mexa Squad partners. And we saw a brief Mexa Blood reunion there because they were also Mexa Blood together as a duo, whereas you had Ray Oris complete the trio for Mexa Squad. But those two kind of worked together at some points in the match. And it was an elimination match. So I was very, very curious to see, how the chips fell, who would get eliminated and how. So basically, at one point, the referee wasn't looking, and Demonic Flamita hit EC3 with a chair. The referee didn't see that, but the referee did see EC3 blast Flamita with a chair, kind of in response to that. So he disqualified EC3, which was a little disappointing, and I felt like it was fairly early into the match where I was like, oh, I kind of want to see a little more there for EC3 potentially really like proving himself in this main event spot. But yeah, I'd like to see EC3 maybe face Bandito in a one-on-one match, and then I believe Flamita was the next man out. I think King pinned him. I'm not quite sure. I'm a little foggy on the details there. And in the end, but Bandito kind of rolled around with King on the mat and kept him down for the 3 count. And it was a good match. I enjoyed it. It was a pretty fun main event for Ring of Honor's best and brightest here in the main event scene, especially. So Bandito retains, and I thought he really needed that. He won the title at best in the world, and he retained the title. Glory by honor, but this felt like a big signature win. Where he had to deal with 3 challengers. Admittedly, EC3 got eliminated a little wonkily, but I think this was definitely a good way to solidify him as the true champion. And then after the match, we definitely got some teases of what could be next. As I said, the Foundation came out. And they applauded him, but Gresham looked a little tall in that title, so I have to imagine we might get that match. Vincent came out as well. He earned a world title shot by defeating Matt Taven in a brutal steel cage match at Glory by Honor. I was going to talk about that show, but we're already almost at an hour here, so I'll just say that we had the long way to blow off to that feud with Vincent and Taven. It was a crazy steel cage match in Philadelphia on night 2 of that event. All of the Righteous interfered, and in the end, Vincent emerged victorious, so he earned a world title shot. He came out, the Righteous clad in all white, when this was very like off-putting, like cult-like thing, very clearly making it known that he probably likely does intend to challenge for the world title sooner and later. If I had to guess, just purely fantasy booking here, but if I had to guess, we're going to see Bandito versus Alex Zane at some point in the coming weeks on ROH TV. Maybe they'll do another world title match on ROH TV before Final Battle, and I would imagine they might build up Bandito versus Gresham at Final Battle as this big, like, as I said, this big kind of dream match for Ring of Honor, for me as a fan, for Ring of Honor fans in general. I think that's how I'd like to see it go, and that is me just completely speculating. But based on what we saw with Alex Zane earning a shot, with Vincent earning a shot previously and coming out at the end of the show, and the Foundation kind of teasing there as well, I definitely think that's a fair speculation, or at least a fair thought about that's what we could see. But yeah, you mentioned those options, and even I think Brody King has got a right, not to part of the pun with Vincent, but a righteous request for a rematch where Bandito kind of rolled him up, like he could easily say, hey, like, why don't you try and actually beat me, and I think that's kind of a realistic approach for EC3, especially, maybe even more so. He got disqualified, kind of again wonkily, for lack of a better word. I think him facing Bandito would be pretty cool as a former world champion in other companies. I think EC3 would be definitely a legitimate opponent for Bandito. Again, maybe to rack up another signature win there. So yeah, lots of options. You talk about the Foundation. LFI is there. Shane Taylor Promotions. Shane Taylor surely wants another shot at the title. Other guys as well. You think about the Briscoes. Matt Taven was definitely going to want to get his title back at some point. Lots of options. I'm looking forward to see what happens with it. But definitely a fun main event. I went a little out of order here. We saw two more matches to talk about briefly here. Shane Taylor Promotions retained the 6-man titles against LFI, and I guess that leads me to another news item here. Roosh, the former world champion, has been ruled out for the remainder of 2021. He had he hurt his knee at Glory by Honor in August. I think it was on night 2 when he and Dragon Lee defeated Bandito and Ray Oris. Initially, Roosh was going to be in this match for the 6-man titles, but due to that knee injury, he got replaced by La Bestia, his father. And then shortly thereafter, they announced that Roosh would be having surgery and is out for the rest of the year. So that's definitely a big blow. I mean, at least in some ways for Ring of Honor, I think he's definitely one of their top stars, a two-time world champion, the face of LFI, I would say. So if we're here talking about the stable warfare. I mean, LFI definitely lost, their biggest weapon, I would say. No knock on Kenny King, Dragon Lee, or Bestia, but it's Roosh. El Toro Bronco, he definitely has that star power. And I think that LFI will miss him. And I think they missed him last night because they lost that match. I think if Roosh didn't get hurt, we may have seen a title change. And or at least I would have been more willing to believe it. But without Roosh, I was like, no, Shane Taylor Promotion is going to win. And they did. Before the match, Shane Taylor attacked Kenny King with a chair. Or sorry, I flipped it. Kenny King attacked Shane Taylor with a chair to remove him from the match. O'Shea Edwards, another member of STP, stepped up. So we saw everyone but Shane Taylor defend the titles here with the Freebird rules there from back in the day. STP won the match. Dragon Lee is one of my favorites. He's one of the best high flyers in the world. Always like seeing him in there. But yeah, definitely a fun match. Definitely a nice moment for O'Shea and Moses and Khan to prove themselves without Shane Taylor, because usually Shane Taylor is the one that really kind of leads this team to victory here. So without him, although he hit Kenny King with a chair to kind of get some revenge there and help his team retain the titles, I've got to imagine we're going to see Kenny King and Shane Taylor fight in a singles match at some point soon. That could definitely be a main event on ROH TV at some point in the coming months. Especially in this, potentially return of the non-fans environment. I think that could be a great main event for a special episode of ROH TV. So, because if you look back to February, King cost Shane Taylor a world title match. So for that reason, for attacking with a chair, they've got a lot of bad blood there, and they could definitely settle that in a fun main event there. Potentially on ROH TV. So Neshkris agreeing it could be a good match. Yeah, I think coming out of the show last night, a lot of people wanted to see that. So myself included. I think that'd be a lot of fun. But like I said, Roosh, that's definitely a big loss. I think, as I said, I've been really enjoying the stable warfare with the Foundation, LFI, Violence Limited, and STP. With Roosh going down, as I said a minute ago, they still have a bunch of options for the world title scene, but definitely disappointed to see him go down with an injury like that, because he's definitely one of the most legit stars in Ring of Honor. Just has definitely some star power to him, and definitely some name value as well. So hopefully he heals up soon. The announcement only said he'll be out for the remainder of the year, so I'm not quite sure whether that means he'll be back early next year, or I really don't know. I guess that could definitely change as we move along here. So as we know more, I'll of course pass it along, and with news coverage and likely talk about here on the Recap of Honor here. But lastly, I can't believe I saved it. Maybe I saved the best for last in anyways. Ring of Honor crowned a new, or I should say its first women's world champion here at Death Before Dishonor. It was the culmination of the Women's Championship Tournament, which stretched all summer long on ROH TV. I enjoyed this a lot. The tournament was a lot of fun. As I said, haven't gotten to do the show a lot. Real life got in the way. The wrestling world is crazy. There's always just so much to do. So I didn't really get to talk about the tournament on a week-by-week basis, but I enjoy it a lot. I always get a little biased when I interview people. So I got to interview Roxy, the Prodigy, I think before right when the tournament started, very, very early on in the tournament. And she's great. She's, I think, 19, absolutely crazy. She has this great story. She started training when she was 13. Wonderful story. She seems such a great person. Definitely deserves it. Absolutely. If you haven't checked it out already, please go check it out on our WrestleZone YouTube or other platforms as well. Definitely check that interview out. I mean, a story made for Hollywood. Again, started training when she was 13. Now she's here. Back then, she hadn't won the title yet. Now she's won the title. So definitely, they've got to make a movie about her one day. Neshkris with a very good question. So, yes, this was the first Ring of Honor Women's World Champion. That is true. Previously, Ring of Honor had the Woman of Honor Championship, which was the women's title. So yes, this was not the first women's champion in Ring of Honor history. Angelina Love held that title. Suma Sky held that title. And I'm blanking on the name. Man, damn. They had another. Wow, brain fart, sorry. They had another champion as well, Kelly Klein. There we go. Woo. It is Monday, forgive me. I was up late covering the show. Kelly Klein was a champion as well, and then a bunch of controversy hit. She had some concussion issues, and that ended very, very ugly with Ring of Honor. She left the company, and the champion therefore there was no champion. So then on top of that, the pandemic hit, so that delayed. They were just like the Peer Championship. They're going to do what we saw the summer. They're going to do a tournament for the championship, and that couldn't happen. So then they had to delay it until the summer. So we got to see a bunch of newcomers fight for the title. We got to see Angelina Love fight for the title. Roxy defeated Angelina Love. That was a big win for her. Her opponent at Depth Before Dishonor was Miranda Elise, if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Great match. I like this a lot. These two women got a lot of time to go out there, put on a great match. I liked it a lot. Late in the match, I was really worried that Roxy would not win, and I would have been admittedly like pretty disappointed because I really just I was rooting for her. I got so like into her story. Again, can't recommend enough. Absolutely a great story for Roxy there, and a crowning moment at the pay-per-view. Next, Chris pointing out that she was expecting Angelina Love to win. I would agree. There's a lot of truth to be said there, where Angelina Love is probably like the most recognizable star in the women's division. I think I looked up the other day, a 6-time TNA Knockouts champion. She was the Women of Honor champion. She may have, I think, one Women of Honor champion. So yes, heading into the tournament, she had a first round bye, and she was definitely like one of the top stars in this, or she is one of the top stars in this women's division, and needlessly in that tournament. So I think it was in the semifinals that Roxy defeated her. Admittedly, Love was supposedly hurt due to an attack post-match from Maxine Paler. So I'd imagine that she will be probably trying to stake her claim to a shot at the title from Roxy. I think that'd be a fun test for her as a young champion there. And as I was saying about the world title, lots of options. You've got Chelsea Green, who we've seen a couple times here. She's in Ring of Honor. She had to sit out of the tournament, but she's here, and you can pretty safely bet she'll be challenging for the title before too long. Elise could get a rematch at some point, and any number of people that we saw compete in the tournament itself, or even some outsiders. I mean, women's wrestling is booming right now. There's just any number of things we could see. And as I said, to bring it full circle, early in the show, Maria Kanellis Bennett was talking about the lack of this forbidden door. So I think we could see, maybe some collaboration and crossover there. So, I was very happy to see Roxy win. Neshkurs agreeing that we could see that first title match be with Angelina Love. I would probably say it's going to be Love or Chelsea Green. Or heck, that could lead. We could have both of them try to get a title shot, and we could see Angelina versus Chelsea Green trying to get a title. To try to get a title shot, maybe do a contenders match there. So Nesha pointing out we could see Maria Kanellis Bennett challenge for a title, or at least get in the ring. Or I think you're saying she was in the ring. She presented the title to Roxy because Maria was the one really kind of building this tournament, really running this tournament, and rebuilding this division. So I would just to clarify, I do not expect to see Maria Kanellis Bennett get back in the ring, but she was in the ring last night to present the title to Roxy there. So that was really cool to see that as kind of a bridge of the past and the present and future of women's wrestling there in Ring of Honor and in general. But yes, I would definitely expect Chelsea Green, who had to sit out of the tournament altogether, try to get a title shot there. And Angelina Love definitely has a rightful, at least, or just a fair request for a rematch. So it was great. It was great to see this tournament finally come together here. For Ring of Honor here, it was great to see all these very talented women bring women's wrestling back to Ring of Honor, something it's really been missing. And the company, as I said, they had the Kelly Klein controversy, they had the pandemic to deal with, so I don't think they can be really blamed at all. Where they had all these obstacles for getting this division back up off the ground. Now it's finally back, and it's looking great. Quinn McKay looked great during the tournament. I hope she gets to become kind of a featured competitor in addition to her hosting duties here in Ring of Honor. And a bunch of other ones impressed me as well. Too many I can't even think to name. Elise looked great in the tournament. She made it to the finals for a reason. Trisha Doyle looked great. I think she made it to the semifinals. I'm not quite sure who all is going to be sticking around beyond the tournament. Like I know, obviously, we know that Elise, Roxy, and Maxine Taylor got signed new deals with Ring of Honor, so they'll be sticking around. Angelina Love, as far as I know, is going to be there. Chelsea Green just signed, so she's going to be there. Nesha pointed out that Chelsea is on Impact and Ring of Honor. I think that's a question, but yes, Chelsea Green is currently kind of doing double duty with Impact, with Ring of Honor. She was at NWA Empower, and she won the Invitational Cups. She had a title match at NWA 73. So definitely, I think that she could be one good bridge potentially for kind of that Forbidden Door talk to bring in some other NWA or Impact talents. Who knows, right? Again, we're wrestling, and this year, who knows what's going to happen? But it's a very, very fun time, and I enjoyed this pay-per-view a lot. Death Before Dishonor, definitely a fun show. Title matches, title changes, and just good matches, good surprises all around. If I had to rate it, I'd probably go for I'll just say a solid 8. Roughly, that's probably my first guess, and I'll stick with it. But a very, very fun show. Before I get out of here, we talked about the fans. We talked about the free agents here. We do know that Russ, Zane, and Alice will be sticking around, at least for now. Lastly here, the only real big aspect of news coming out of the show, I guess 2 of them. One of them definitely more I don't want to say concerning, but some. All right, I'll go bad news, good news, or actually, let's flip it. Good news: Chris Hero, Ring of Honor legend, was working backstage as a producer. This was the second time he worked backstage as a producer since Best in the World, I believe. I'm not sure if he was there for Glory by Honor, but yes, Chris Hero, one half of the Kings of Wrestling, with now we know him as Antonio Cesaro, one of the fan favorite legends in Ring of Honor there, working as a producer. As far as I know, we haven't really seen him wrestle at all, or at the very least, not very much, since he got released last year. And I remember I listened to an interview he did where he just said he didn't feel comfortable with it, getting back in the ring. So if you can have Chris Hero back there offering his services, so he can use his great mind for wrestling to better your show, that's a very, very good thing. I hope he sticks around. He could be a very, very valuable figure in general as a producer, and then just in general in the locker room. I think that's a very, very good thing. So that's the good news. The not so good news is a report coming out of the show that PCO, a former world champion in Ring of Honor, has told the company, basically he's given them his notice that he will be leaving the company once his contract expires. So I pulled it up right before the show here. So this is per Fightful, citing the Wrestling Observer, Dave Meltzer. PCO gave his notice to Ring of Honor, so he won't be returning once his current contract expires on December 1st. He'll keep working through the deal there, but that would mean that come December 1, he will be leaving. And that's a bummer to me. I'm a big fan of PCO. When I started watching Ring of Honor full time in 2019, he was someone that I really, really resonated with. This is the French Frankenstein, is a very, very fun character. I just think he's a great performer. I got the absolute privilege to interview him earlier this year. Great guy, great legend of the business, former world champion. Definitely enjoyed a remarkable career resurgence before he came to Ring of Honor, and then that continued in Ring of Honor. But I mean, it makes sense. I would say during the pandemic era, we haven't seen him all too much. He formed a team with Danhausen. He's been in some matches here and there. He was on the Honor Rumble last night, so but he really hasn't been featured all that prominently. And part of that could be his age. I think it might be 54, I believe, roughly. And not to say that age is, of course, age is just a number. But if you're any company, you have a guy like that, or I should say, PCO handed in his notice. He says, okay, it's 53 actually. So I don't know the ins and outs of this. I don't know. I don't know. It could be that he wasn't being used and he wanted to leave. When he signed his last contract, he was definitely a very, very hot free agent coming out of that the world title win and that real career resurgence. So I think there's definitely a role for him elsewhere. I think there's a role for him in Ring of Honor. I think that he could still do a lot here. But if he is leaving, I wish him nothing but the very best. I think he could do great elsewhere. As far as I know, he doesn't plan to retire. That's not anything I've heard. But as I've said of other things here, as I know more, as more details become known, I will share them with you all through my work with WrestleZone, with the show here on the Recap of Honor here. But yes, if that is the case, that is not, again, as we were saying about the talk about the fans being shut down again. That has not been officially confirmed, but has been reported by a fairly solid source. So I would have to imagine that is the case. So definitely, we still have just under 3 months, the rest of September and October, November there. So I hope that PCO gets the chance to kind of showcase his stuff in Ring of Honor, maybe see him on Ring of Honor TV if they don't do more events here with the live fans throughout the fall. But yeah, the kind of the 1-2 punch there of the live fans reportedly not coming back, or at least the no plans to have the shows for the rest of the fall. Definitely a bummer. And then the news of PCO potentially leaving, another bummer as well. To kind of sour the mood coming out of a very, very fun pay-per-view, but it was a very good pay-per-view nonetheless. I'm looking forward to see what happens next with the women's title, with the world title, with the pure title. All these things to look forward to in Ring of Honor and elsewhere. So that about wraps it up here. It's Monday, so I'll be back here tonight with John Clark to talk about WWE Raw. And then we'll be back here tomorrow night on Tuesday to talk about NXT. Ness Curse says she's looking forward to tomorrow's wedding with Index. Oh, you know I am. I'm very much looking forward to that as well. John and I, of course, will talk about the news that the NXT title has been relinquished by Samoa Joe. Definitely another bummer there. We don't want to give that away. We'll talk about that on the NXT show. But on top of that, Robert D. Felice and I talk about Friday Night SmackDown on Saturday mornings. The Dynamite Dudes of Rampage cover all things AEW. And otherwise, we've got a great stream of interviews constantly coming to you guys. As I said, I interviewed Matt Taven just last week. That's already up. So make sure to check that out. And additionally, my interview with Big Damo, Killian Dane, formerly in WWE, will be going up this afternoon. So make sure to keep an eye out for that one. All these things and more available on all of our streaming platforms, SoundCloud, Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, whatever it may be. We've got you covered. So with all that said, this has been the Recap of Honor. I've run through a very eventful pay-per-view. And as I said, all the news coming out of the show. Lots of stuff happening in Ring of Honor right now, and a lot of it is good, and a lot of it's stuff to look forward to. And as I said, some of the not so good news, we will be here still doing our best to do the one thing we do here at WrestleZone, and that is enjoy wrestling. Thanks so much for listening, everybody.